You are watching the Onyx Effect. Step in the ring with Onyx, presented by Matchbout. Today we're interviewing the one and only petite powerhouse recording artist, Monica P. I'm so excited to have you here. Watching your transformation and all of those things have been amazing, and all of the things that you do. Your songs are dope. I love those. I just love everything you do. One of the things that I most admire about you, though, is your mothering and your parenting skills. You have started Shades of Blue Autism, and you started that because you have a child who has been diagnosed with autism. For those people that don't really understand what autism is, can you explain to parents or people that don't have autistic children or don't know really much about it in layman's term, what is autism?
Autism is more of a sensory issue, so how they process information is different. And then there's also how they respond. So they process it different and then they respond differently. So my son Jackson, he is what they considered high functioning because he's verbal, he can speak, but he does have a lot of issues with socialization. So he's not very social. He doesn't really like children that much, and he also has a little bit of what they call autistic rage. So a lot of autistic children, their sensors are overloaded to where they're overstimulated. And so their reactions to certain things, it's not always the appropriate reaction.
So he is being diagnosed as being having high functioning autism. So you said something very key. I didn't know that it was between being verbal and nonverbal. So if that is the definition, so if they are verbal, they're considered high functioning. If they're not, is that the determination on what makes one high functioning or not?
Yes, that's definitely one of them that makes it them high functioning. And Jackson can do some things on his own. He just needs a lot of coaching. So a lot of the other children, they need a lot more guidance. So he's what they used to call Asperger's. Now they got rid of that diagnosis and it's just one spectrum. So if he's on the high end of the spectrum or the low end of the spectrum. So he's on the higher end because he has like a 130 IQ. So he's very, very smart. But it's just how he brings that out, is what we have to work on.
Right. Wow. Thank you for that definition because it's always kind of been a little confusing for me. How old was Jax when he was first diagnosed with autism?
He was finally diagnosed at age 4. But we have been trying to get him diagnosed probably since he was right before he turned 2. I knew that there was something going on with Jackson that just wasn't quite right, especially being the mother of 5 children. I had 4 that I already knew, these are the things I should be looking for. So I knew pretty early that there was something just not quite right with Jackson. Even his reactions at an early age, as a baby, dropping his bottle or doing something would cause him to just go into these, rages or this high-pitched scream, and he never slept. So he was a baby that was awake all the time, and I'm like, this is just not normal for a newborn or 1 or 2 month old to be sitting up 8-9 hours in a row, without sleeping. So we knew early, but it took until he was about 4 because they give you a lot of pushback. Because they're just like, he's too young, you can't really see where the development is. Let's see if he grows. And it just took this one time for me to take him to CHKD, and he was in a full-blown autistic rage in the waiting room, and then it kind of continued back into the doctor's room, and they finally got to see what I had been saying all this time, and immediately he diagnosed him with autism.
One of the questions I have and what I continue to hear is that sometimes there's a difference in how soon children of color are diagnosed with autism versus Caucasian children. Is that something that you think maybe have played a part in Jackson's diagnosis?
I think so. I mean, I didn't want to think that in the beginning, But as I've gone on and trying to get him with therapies and things of that nature, I do see that there are some boundaries. And then I also think it's how people of color take the issue of autism.
Okay.
Because we don't want to admit when our children are not at their best.
That's true.
You know, especially something like this that kind of mimics a child that doesn't have enough discipline.
That's true.
And so I've always seen, you see more of the white people, they tend to just be like, oh, something's wrong with little Timmy. Let's get little Timmy fixed out. But, I had a lot of my black friends are just like, you need to discipline him more. It's you, you got to stay on him, got to stay on him. I'm like, no, it's not me.
Right.
So there is a difference, not just with the medical, but also in the community as a whole.
That makes sense, like culturally and from the medical aspect, because I had a family member who does now have, her child has been diagnosed with autism. And I remember as a baby, I noticed that something wasn't quite right. So and it wasn't like outrageous, but I just noticed having children that something just seemed a little off. And when I brought it up, they took it as an attack on them and their parenting. So it's a family member, so I just fell back. But later on, and he was about 6 years old, she finally took him in and he got the diagnosis. So definitely culturally, that's definitely a good point to bring out. What is Jax's communication style with you and his siblings?
It changes day to day.
Yeah.
It really does. It's like some days he can wake up and he is over communicative, whatever that word is. Over talkative. Some days he's like that, and then some days it's all emotional.
Right.
All emotional communication. So sometimes if he wakes up, depending on if he smiles or if he whines, I'm almost like, oh gosh, here we go. I don't know what kind of day it's going to be.
Right.
And it changes. He might wake up in a good mood, and just like that, the switch could flip, and it can go all downhill. Yesterday, we ended up having to call because he was just out of control, and it was like a slow progression.
Right.
And so you just never know what you're going to get on any given day. It's just like toss the coin and hope it lands on a good day.
Yeah. Well, you do an excellent job. I follow you both on Shades of Blue Autism, and you do an excellent job of sharing and bringing awareness to what the parents deal with, because a lot of times I don't think that we think about that. What activities does he like? Because, and does that kind of help sometimes when he's having a bad day, if you can get him into one of his activities?
Well, all of my children are musicians, so they all have some kind of musical gift.
Right.
Jackson can put a beat together, like he's going to be fierce,
Right.
And so I try to nurture that part of him. He is also the child that I can show him anything on the piano, 1, 2, 3, and he can mimic it, just easily. So he has that gift. The only thing about Jackson is everything that he loves, it's an isolation kind of thing.
Right.
So he can do music, but he wants to do it by himself.
Right.
So we want to try to find him things that he can be willing to do with other people, because that is the main thing that's missing. But he loves music. He's been building firework displays.
Wow.
He's got some kind of program. He's been building elaborate firework displays.
Right.
He wants to be a fighter jet pilot. I live right by Langley Air Force Base, and he always tells me I'm going to be the first autistic fighter jet pilot.
That is awesome.
So his mind just works so different, like bridges. He wants to construct a new bridge, the tunnel. He doesn't like the way the Hampton Roads bridge tunnel is constructed. So, autistic children tend to be very brilliant.
Yes, they are.
They tend to be very, very brilliant. And if you can just tap into those things, they can really go far.
And he's just cute as all get out, so it makes it easier. Especially when he's probably in his cute mode doing music. He's just the cutest thing ever. So we're going through the pandemic, and you're having to homeschool Jax now. What are the different types of struggles that you're facing with him, and is it different than what you might be dealing with your daughter?
Well, Jackson only got to be home until the school year started, because he was in Hampton Public Schools, but that didn't work out. Because the public schools are just not really set up for a child with his kind of disability.
Right.
And so they finally, after an incident, had to dismiss him from the public schools. And so now he goes to a private day school. The private day school, he does have to go to in-person learning because he didn't do anything the entire time he was
right.
You can't focus him enough to sit in front of a computer
right.
and do that. So it was a wash.
Right.
We used to do the little worksheets that they give us a little packet. We tried to do those, but other than that, he's not going to sit on a computer for 20, 30, 40 minutes. No, he's not going to do that.
Well, I commend you for even taking the initiative to do that, because sometimes most parents, they try to make it or force their kids through a program that doesn't really work for them, although it may be detrimental to them in the long run.
Right.
Now, I think we focus on the wrong things sometimes when we're thinking about normalcy.
Right.
What treatments or therapies have you found that work best for Jess?
Well, he has ABA therapy, so that really helps him. He has gone to play therapy. That has really opened him up to where I think he's learning how to make connections. Like, he invited some neighborhood kids for pizza one day, but he didn't tell me until they showed up.
Right.
They showed up at the door, and he's like, "Mom, they're here for pizza." And I'm like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
So that was, and I went ahead and ordered the pizza because I was so impressed. Like, you invited people to come have pizza with you.
Yeah.
So he invited them, and he didn't really interact with them, but I got a moment to speak to the children and say, thank you so much for coming, and explain to them that Jackson was autistic, and that it was really special that they showed up, and they have continued to come and say hi to him, and I told him, I said, some days he might speak to you, some days he might not, but he does like you because he invited you here. So the play therapy has really helped open him up to possibly, making some friends or being willing to make friends.
One of the things I want to ask you is, how are you doing? Because as I said earlier, this is a two-part question. You started Shades of Blue Autism, and you talk a lot about the things that you go through, which is something that enlightened me, because, we just think parents have it all figured out. So when it comes to those moments, how are you doing, and what can people do that support you or want to support you? What can we do?
And what I really want people to understand is, there's so much help for the child that the parents get left out.
Right.
And people didn't understand that I was the one that was up all night with Jackson, especially being a single mom. So I'm the one that's there. I'm the one that's having to take off work. I can take off work, but that's FMLA. I don't get paid for that.
Right.
So there was a stress there with, making sure my finances are taken care of, but I had to take care of him. Right. So, and it's not every day, what would you do if your child called you the B word?
Right.
So people don't understand that. Their immediate reaction is, oh, I would do this. No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because he's an autistic child, but it still doesn't take away the pain.
Right.
And then when he's in these rages where it's going on for days, because it happens like that.
Right.
It seems like it cycles, and he'll go for days, and I'm not sleeping, I'm not doing any of that. It is difficult for me. And Shades of Blue came about from a really dark time where I just was going into a really dark depression, and I had just had enough. I don't think people were helping because I wasn't sharing it as much, because I didn't want to burden other people, with my issues with Jackson. So I was holding so much in that I was just going downhill, until I decided, I wanted to end my life. I was like, I can't go another day like this. And I just, and it was thankful that day it was a stranger out there at Fort Monroe, and they stopped.
Right.
Because I was just crying uncontrollably, and I mean that stranger saved my life.
Wow.
And I mean, I had never thought that I would get to that point, but people just don't understand the level of stress, that I am under when you can't go to sleep with the child in the house. Child telling you they're going to kill you, child trying to kill your other child. So it's just, something that people really have to experience to understand. But when I started sharing, people have been there. People do care. People have sent donations, to help when I was out of work because of Jackson being hospitalized.
Right.
People stepped in, and they really helped.
Welcome back to the Onyx Effect, Step in the Ring with Onyx. We are here with Monica P., recording artist and mother extraordinaire. Now we're going to get into a little bit more information about her recording career. So Monica, what first got you into music?
I have been doing music since I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. I mean, music has just always been my life. I mean, my mother was very musical. She could sing, and I just heard music all the time. I could create music in my head.
Right.
And I just started at about 4 or 5, just walked in a room one time and got on the piano. And this lady had asked me, have you taken lessons? And I was like, no. And she was like, where's your mom? And she took me out to my mom. She was like, you need to do something with this child, you know? So I was just like that. Any instrument that I wanted to play, I would just pick it up, and somehow I just did it.
Wow. That is amazing. And were all of your kids like that?
Yes.
Did they get into it very young as well?
Yes.
Wow, that's good. Well, it's good to pass down your genes. I wish somebody passed me down the singing thing. I can sing, just not well. How would you describe the music that you typically create?
You know, I am such an eclectic artist because when I say I love music, I love music. I'm one of those singers that's willing to sing everything.
Right.
Matter of fact, the single before, the one I just released, Both Ways, it was actually supposed to be a country / pop song because it was going to be a duet with me and another country artist. And then something happened, he couldn't do it, and then I rewrote it and made it in what it is. But that's why it still has that little bit of a country twang to it in the beginning, and then it hits into the bass. But yeah, so I really want to be a country singer.
Really? I would have never thought that. And this is why you saying that you do and dabble here and there in music, because you're eclectic. I think that your music just sounds like you. So I think that that's a good thing, because it sounds like a Monica P song. So whatever it is your sound. And I think that that's a good thing when it comes to being an artist, because you're really not like anybody else. So yeah, that's probably why then. Because I like good music. So as long as it's good music, I love it. And you make good music.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is your creative process like?
Let's see. Well, my creative process, I always write songs in reverse. That's a crazy thing.
Explain that.
I always write songs in reverse. So I can usually tell in the first 15 seconds of a song if I'm going to be able to write anything to it, or even if I like it. If I don't come up with the first 2 lines of the chorus in the first 15 seconds of the song, you can skip it. Because it's always like that.
Okay.
I always write the chorus first, and then I write the bridge, and then I write the second verse. And I never ever write the first verse ever until I get into the studio.
Wow.
Because depending on the vibe of the studio or the session or whatever we're gonna do, I might change the whole song.
Well, that makes sense because you're such a creative. I mean, you create all types of things. You create beautiful spaces, you create beautiful children, you create beautiful music, you create beautiful jokes on the internet. Just in case y'all don't know, Monica P is one of the funniest people out there. She needs to add stand-up comedian to that. Every time I see your post, I'm always laughing. But yeah, you keep me laughing, keep us informed, and then you do all of these beautiful things. So
thank you.
Yeah. What is one message you would give to your fans?
Never stop. Never stop dreaming, because I would never think that at this age, that I would be able to go back out and do what I was born to do.
Right.
You know, having to give that up for so long. And I have such a unique story, you know, of how I even got back to Monica P.
Yeah.
You know, to give up music for your children, to take care of children during a divorce. And then that same child, the oldest one, grows up and becomes a producer.
Wow.
And is like, Mama, you know, here, I have a song for you. And we did one song and just put it out just to see what was going to happen, and it just took off.
Wow. Isn't that amazing how your kids can bless you and bring you back full circle into your dreams and support your dreams?
Yes.
What is the most useless talent that you have?
Useless. Oh, my talent is worthy, honey.
I love that.
So I don't have a useless talent. All my talent is worthy.
Well, there you go. There you go. I would say mine is singing. So if I had to say, because
Okay, let me say. Okay, we could say drawing.
Okay, but can you draw? Can you draw?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I think that I'm a talented singer, but no one else would agree with that.
That's why I can't do like eyebrows. No, see, I had to get somebody else because I can't. I can't draw. So all the people that be drawing, I can't draw with the leg.
Yeah, because I think I'm a talented singer, honey. I can't. I just had to go ahead and admit that, but probably only Jesus likes it. Do you sing in the shower? And if yes, what songs?
I'm always singing country in the shower for some reason. And when I love singing in the shower because the acoustics in the bathroom is always amazing. And even if you don't sound that great, you always sound great in the bathroom.
I sound a little bit better, but not great. Who is your favorite country artist?
Let's see, who is it now? Carrie Underwood.
Really?
Is one of my favorites.
Awesome. I love Reba. I've always loved her.
I love her
She's been I think she's been consistently my favorite probably over the last 20 years. But I think she's funny too.
She is.
What would you be doing right now if it wasn't for your music career?
Working. Just working. Just going on through life. Just working, doing my thing. But I think music would always be some part of it, because even when I wasn't recording, I was a choir director. I was a youth, choir director. I volunteered in the schools, in their music department. So I would always find something to do with music, even if I wasn't recording.
Well, so you said earlier that basically your son got you back into music. How has that helped or transformed your life in a way that's noticeable to you?
It is hard to go through life and never realize your purpose.
Right.
All those things that you want to be, to never become any of that. And so if people knew my full story, like my childhood, what we had to go through, for me, this is a journey of validation. This isn't a journey like I want to be a superstar. This is a journey to show my mom, my dad, the people that should have helped me get to where I am today, that you were fine.
I love that. And you did it anyway, and you did it on your own terms, and you're able to define you the way that you want to be defined. Yeah. So, and you probably have a strength now that you didn't have then.
I definitely.
Kids do that.
Definitely. I mean, because when I had my children were born for me to be the best mother that I could be because of what I had. I didn't have that experience.
Right.
So I had children because I'm like, see, when I have my kids, I'm going to love them.
Right.
I'm going to take care of them. I'm not going to be an alcoholic and be drunk. I'm not going to beat on them.
Right.
I'm not going to do all these. I'm not going to leave them. And that's what I focused on. So they are like my pride and joy because they have become everything that I told myself when I had children, that this is what they were going to be.
Right.
And so now to see them so successful, they've never been in jail, never been to the principal office.
Yeah.
They're the kind of children that the janitors, when I used to go pick them up at school, would be like, you have some of this your child? They be picking up trash for me in the cafeteria. They're just respectful young men. And I only have one daughter. I have 4 boys.
Yeah.
And the boys are they're just amazing. So even if I never got to put out another song, seeing my talents manifest in them, because my son is a producer, he has music out. My other son, they have music out together.
Right.
And seeing Jackson putting these beats together,
Yeah.
Where people were like, can I buy that?
Wow.
He put one together. I put it on Facebook, and people were reaching out like, that is so dope. I want to buy that.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, so to see it manifest in them, and then, they're my background singers, so.
That's awesome. And you posted that you had the same kid over and over again, right? So I'm thinking that you literally did now. Not only, because I looked and I was like, and then your daughter, it's you like, did you have yourself right? And he looks just like him, that looks like him, that looks like him. And then they all have like these amazing talents that they got from you, and they are these amazing functioning kids in the world. So kudos to you, and kudos to you for being able to transcend your circumstances. My grandmother used to say, you're either going to be just like your parents or you're going to be completely different from them. So not being defined by the experiences that you had means that you got a story to tell. And thank you for, because you're so transparent and honest, and I just can't even wait to hear whatever else is inside of you, because I know, like talking to you now and listening to you and seeing the pride and just watching you, I'm proud of you, and I'm just glad to be a supporter, and I'm glad that we were able to meet.
Thank you so much.
What is your favorite song to perform?
Right now, it is Run It Back. Run It Back. The last 2 songs that I did turned out exactly the way that I created them in mind. That usually doesn't happen, because I'm a high thinker. So I'll get in there and I'll be like, well, I want this note to go here, and then I can't do it. And then I'm one of those people that I'm not a Chris Brown. I don't want the technician to take me there.
Right, right.
If I can't get there, then we just gonna cut it out.
Right.
And so I've had to sometimes manipulate, but both ways, and Run It Back turned out exactly the way that I thought they were gonna turn out, how I envisioned it in my head. So Run It Back is just a fun song. I love dance music, and that's definitely my favorite.
And it's doing really well.
Yes.
And you made a post earlier, and I think a lot of people that are independent, it's something that we learn along the way. So once you get out of the mindset of expecting the people that are closest to you to support you, that's usually when you take off. What happened and what triggered that change in you? Or was it just a leap of faith, like, let me just try something new? What happened to make you go outside of your comfort zone to really see who else was going to be interested in your music?
Because in the beginning, it seems like you're sometimes creating for the people that are just right there around you. And I realized there was people in my corner that was kind of like, yeah, you should do it. And then I did it. And then it was like, where you at? You told me to do it. And then it was like, but we didn't expect you to actually do it and do it well, you know? And so I had to realize that wow, now I've done it, and here I'm thinking that I'm gonna have all the support. I didn't have that.
Right.
And so I just took it off on my own. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to sign. I've gotten a lot of record offers, but I don't want to sign a record deal because I'm not in that stage where I'm trying to be a superstar.
Right.
I'm just trying to let people know I'm here.
Right.
And I want you to see me. Let me show you what I can do.
Well, I see.
Yeah. And so, and I had to really actually move outside of that circle, because sometimes those circles can hold you back.
You do.
And I had to move outside that circle and expand it to where, now I'm the #1 local regional artist.
That is so dope. Congratulations. And I can say I knew her when. So we're going to go ahead and get into Run It Back. It is available on all streaming platforms. And make sure you check her out, follow her, and support her. Monica P, everybody.
If it is, I don't want to be right there. My imagination's running free. 50 shades got nothing on me. Come and let me demonstrate, boy. The memory of you and me got me going insane. Every time you call my name, boy, I can't wait, can't concentrate.